Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hi, welcome back to Isabel's Digest. My name is Isabel, and today I'm going to talk to you about the books I read during the month of July 2021 and go over the ratings I gave to each of the books. And yes, summer is never coming to where I am. Again, another video of me wearing a sweater and a blazer because it's cold outside. Never mind that, the first book I read during the month of July, it's called The Painting by Alison Booth. This was an ARC given to me by Netgalley and Red Door Press. Thank you so much for trusting in me and my reviews. And if you want to read a full review of that, you can find it in my Goodreads and in the Netgalley website. The Painting is historical fiction. It takes place in 1989, the same year that Taylor Swift was born, but also the year when the Iron Curtain fell. The novel covers this precise timeline with a few months before and a few months after this event, specifically for a Hungarian family and how this big historical event marked a big difference in their family and their history of trauma, of survival, etc., etc., etc. Our protagonist, Anika, is a Hungarian woman that lives in Australia, and she lives with an aunt, and they really miss their family and their homeland, but they do have a painting that Anika brought with her, and under a moment of distress, they get it valued, but soon after that, the painting gets stolen from their house. This initiates a long search for the painting and a lot of digging about the same painting, which takes Anika into discovering her whole family history, her family tragic, and what her family had to do to survive during war times. Something I really liked about this novel is that I learned a lot. And of course, I'm 23 years old. I know history. I understand what the background is. I understand what happened. However, I feel like in my personal experience, I feel like all of these things happened a very long time ago, and that's really not the case. Again, this is 1989, and it's not really that far away as I tend to think about it, and as I know that other people see it. I know that we have experienced a lot of historical events recently. However, this book really gave me the opportunity to learn more about the history of Hungary, and I think that when we think about the Cold War and the Soviet Union, we don't really think about countries like that were really under surveillance and oppression and starvation. I give this book a 3 out of 5 because I feel like there were moments in the novel when I was really distracted. Like I wanted to stop reading or I wanted to do something else. It was slow paced in a way that kind of lost my interest in some points, especially at the beginning and the end. Like once we get the painting stolen, because I think that the stealing of the painting takes a long time to come in, and like that's what you're going in for, and the build-up is really long. And the ending and the last plot twist felt a little bit too unnecessary. Felt the novel could have easily ended with a little bit of reunification with the family, with, I don't know, I don't even think the painting was that important at the end. And it just kind of dragged the book for me. Still, I would recommend this book if you love stories about stolen paintings, the Cold War, and family secrets, because I know I do. Next, we have a novel I read with my pal Paulina from Paulina's Pages, and that you have a full video about that here in my channel. And I'm talking about The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This is a classic and African-American piece of literature that is very important. In my opinion, it is a mandatory read. This is an epistolary novel told in letters addressed to God, and that should really hook you in. I know it did for me. We start with a 14-year-old writing to God, telling her about the abuse that she suffers from her own father and how she's afraid that her younger sibling is going to go through the same thing. She only wants to protect her sister. And it's heartbreaking. That first letter really hooks you in this pain that this young girl is suffering. As I said, with this pain, we follow her life through these letters addressed to God and afterwards addressed to her sister. She is forced to marry a man just because She was trying to protect her sister from marrying him. She lives a life of humiliation, violence, and abuse from this same man. And afterwards, she needs to live with her own grief, thinking that her sister is dead forever and that she's never going to see her again. The Color Purple is a difficult read because of these themes, because it's so much pain, it's so much suffering, it's so many injustices towards women, but also towards people of color. However, I want to describe this book as not a book about pain, but a book about strength, a book about hope, community, and sisterhood. It really touches a lot of parts of your soul, and the explorations of religion alone are going to leave you thinking for a long ass time. However, also, nevertheless, my favorite part was the exploration of sexuality and of toxic masculinity, and how this one is built and perpetuated through generations, which are themes that I don't see discussed as often when people talk about this novel, because the religion part is so salient and so interesting to explore. But I think that it's also a very interesting part and a very important part of why I like this novel as much as I did. It's not perfect. It has its things, and I talk about it in my video with Paulina. However, it is a video with spoilers, so beware of that. And I think this is the most famous book I read this month, so I don't think I need to go too into detail about that. You probably have heard of it, and if you haven't, please listen to me and go read it. It is very important. And it is very important to our current discussions of gender, race, sexuality, but also it's just very important to acknowledge because it was very innovative when it was published. 5 out of 5. Breaking my own rule, I need to admit that I'm completely hooked in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the series of books by Holly Jackson, because, well, murder mystery is always going to be my jam. It's something I love to read, to watch, to enjoy. And these books are so approachable. They deliver, they understand the assignment, and they are fast-paced. They're page turners, they make sense, they're great. Good Girl, Bad Blood, and of course, I love the Taylor Swift reference, is the second book in the series. And again, we follow our favorite teen detective, Pip, in a different type of case. After the events of the first novel, she has completely sworn off mysteries. She doesn't do that anymore, and she's only following up with the first case. She has a podcast when she told the whole story, and she's following up on the trial for the people that were responsible. When her friend's brother goes missing, Pip is the only one willing to take the case. The police is not taking it seriously, and we are in because the stakes are higher. This guy needs to be found ASAP. It is different from the first case because this was a cold case, and now we have a living person that needs help. We work against the clock with Pip, but we also followed the podcast in the investigation at the same time, which it's very interesting because the whole time you're wondering, is the person, the criminal, responsible for what's happening now? Listening to the podcast and having insight on Pip's mind, what's happening. And because of the events of the first book and the fame that Pip got, now the whole town knows about her. They know what she's doing. She kind of has a reputation, and people are less likely to help her because they don't want to get tangled in the podcast. They don't want their name appearing, and they're just overall more worried about her. What I really love about this book and the series is that the characters never stop feeling like teenagers to me. They are involved in this mystery and detective work, especially Pip, but they feel very vulnerable, very teenagers, full of angst. And of course, she is dealing with a lot of problems and trauma from the first book. So we go deeper in this kind of like psychological part and aspects of the characters, which I think is really cool and an improvement from the first novel. Overall, I am always recommending this book if you want YA, if you want mystery, murder, crime as detective work. It has a really good formula. It's a page turner. It's very light though, so it's not gonna deeply disturb you. And I think that is good for teen and adults alike. I give it 4 out of 5, and I am hoping for the next book. So another book that I read with Paulina for our buddy read was The Discomfort of Evening. And I need to check the name because I am probably gonna say it wrong, but the name of the author is Mariek Lucas Rechneveld. I'm gonna leave it here. I'm sorry I didn't pronounce it right. And for this book, I really want to say check the trigger warnings. Maybe this won't be the book for you, because it definitely wasn't the book for me. And not because it's a bad book, because I think the prose is really astonishing, but I think the themes that it tackles, the style that the author was going for, and overall the way the characters were constructed were very difficult for me to enjoy. It's not a book that you enjoy. It's a book that you have to read. It's kind of like a difficult read, a challenging read. It's a challenging read, not an enjoyable one. So what is it about? This novel is about this young girl who wants to keep her rabbit. She lives in a farm and her father wants to kill her rabbit. So she asks God to please spare the animal and take her brother instead. Well, when the brother appears dead a couple of days afterwards, she feels shocked and she feels guilty. And we really go with the family into a shared grief that is tackled in different ways, as grief tends to be. And what some of those coping mechanisms are the trigger warnings. So like violence against kids, against animals, sexual abuse, and self-harm, starvation, eating disorders, and many other things that can be triggering to you, because I know they were triggering for me. The words I think about when I want to describe this novel, The Discomfort of Evening, well, discomfort is a pretty good one. Discomfort and grotesque. If you're familiar with grotesque literature or grotesque art in general, it's supposed to create a reaction of rejection and discomfort, and it really connects with the body. It's a lot about bodily functions, and this novel focuses a lot on this, on vomit and bowel movements and smells, decomposition of things that we don't really talk about, that we all know are kind of gross, but the narrator focus on them for some reason. I mean, because it's a kid and the kid is going through a lot, and that's what I would describe it like, as grotesque, this meaning of the word, as grotesque as the grotesque art movement, and as challenging, disturbing, gruesome in some ways. However, it's difficult to rate it because the writing is incredible. And it won a lot of awards when it came out. And it's either one of those books that you love it or you hate it, or you read it, you understand what it's trying to do, and you just put it away. It's not really that book that you recommend to people over coffee, you know? So you are warned. Also, if you don't like to read novels that are told from a child perspective with an adult voice, maybe it's not going to be something that you like. I know that I don't like that. I am very sensible to the narrative voice. So if you are telling me that the narrator is a child and it doesn't sound like a child, I am conflicted. Or if you're telling me the narrator is an adult and it doesn't sound like an adult, I am conflicted. And that's something that definitely happens in this book, because we have a narrator that is dealing with a lot of trauma, that is hyper intelligent and hyper aware of everything, and still it kind of sounds fake. It kind of sounds like an adult speaking. So keep that in mind, keep the trigger warnings in mind, but also consider that the writing is incredible and is really well done. It's just trying to accomplish different things that maybe not all books want to do. Also, if you are very sensible about corrupted children, so like children that are not innocent, that are not pure as other books or stories always portray them to be, this is definitely not the book for you. This book is about corrupt children and what this corruption can do to them. So maybe skip this one if all of this sounds like something that you don't enjoy. For my fuller exploration of this novel and my ideas and my thoughts about it, you can watch the video that Paulina just uploaded on her channel. It's gonna be linked somewhere in the description. I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5 because of all of the things I just said. Now for all the fans of slasher horror movies out there, because I know that I am one, I bring you a new release. The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix is a book that everyone in Bookstagram is talking about. It's very different. The idea of it is, I don't know, very camp. A homage to Final Girls and to the genre, but also really as a critique toward toxic masculinity and depictions of violence towards female for male entertainment, or the entertainment of masses in general. It's really something, I think. So what is a final girl? Because if you don't understand that, well, the title is kind of weird. So a final girl is usually a young woman, a virginal woman that survives the horror movie and faces the murder, the monster at the end. She usually faces him, she hurts him, but he runs away because there's always a sequel. And she is the only one from her friends that survives, and she walks towards the sunset towards the end. Think of movies like Halloween or Scream for a reference. In this novel, we have a group of them already after a few decades of the murder, and they really serve as a support group. They help each other after movie franchises, after the world kind of forgets about them, after divorces, like through everything. They are really the only people in the world that can connect in the same level of trauma. Until one day, one of these women is brutally murdered at her home. In that moment, our protagonist is convinced someone is coming for the final girls. She doesn't know why, but she knows that they know a lot of information about them. And whoever that is doing this is targeting final girls and what they represent. So she goes on the run. We go into this fast-paced, thrilling story through LA and California, packed with movie references, packed with plot twists, and with an unreliable narrator that is not always unreliable, but just enough for you to keep guessing what's really happening. My problem is that while this narrator is somewhat unreliable, we never get to see a big depth character exploration or character development in any of them, in any of the final girls, not even our protagonist one. And this is definitely only a problem if you are very into character-driven stories. Because this is a plot-driven story, it happens really fast, it goes way too fast sometimes. You kind of need to be like, hey, wait, what happened? But it's a page turner, it's thrilling, you can really see it happening as a movie because it really pays homage to movies. So I would love to see an adaptation of this novel, of course. Yeah, that's my only problem. It is very plot driven when I enjoy character driven stories, but that sounds like a me problem. So I am sure you will enjoy it as much as I did if you enjoy slasher movies and crime and mysteries and all of that good stuff. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. And again, this is a new release. You will see a lot of reviews in Bookstagram and Booktube. And I think the author is, I'm so bad, I should have done research about it. I'm gonna Google it because this is not gonna, I'm gonna Google it because it's not gonna let me sleep at night. Grady Hendrix. Oh yeah, so yes, I was right. Yeah, so I was right. He is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Southern Book Club Guides to Slaying Vampires, and I only heard good things about this novel. I haven't read it. It's been in my TBR since it came out, so maybe this is gonna finally prompt me into reading it. Hendrix seems to be an expert in horror, looking through his Goodreads account and his other novels. So yes, to conclude with this month and this wrap up, I read All's Well. I know. I received an ARC. Thank you so much to Netgalley and Simon & Schuster for it. And this book is being released today. I know, I have great timing. So All's Well is the gripping story of Miranda, a former actress, a former Shakespearean actress whose only connection with the theater now is being the director of the theater department in a very small college. Miranda lost everything when she literally fell out of the stage into chronic pain, discomfort, and just good old suffering. She lost her marriage, she lost her career, her will to live, and the depiction of pain in this novel is astonishing because it hurts you, it pains you, even if you don't know anything about this type of physical and emotional pain. The only thing that Miranda wants to do now is to present All's Well That Ends Well by William Shakespeare as the play of the semester, until her students go against her, picking a different play because they didn't want to perform All's Well, and that's when she hits rock bottom. At this low point, Miranda meets three mysterious men, and with a flick, she miraculously recovers and becomes invincible. Blurring the line between reality and magic, as it often happens in theater and in Shakespeare, Mona Allwood gives us a dark and twisted story about pain and theater, the correlation of both, how both kind of feed of each other. It is a story about vulnerability, power, and, Shakespeare. I think you will be very pleased with this novel if you enjoyed The Secret History, If We Were Villains, like stories that go over the madness that Shakespeare was entranced with, stories that go dark into desires, the chaos obsession brings, and unclear endings that leave you thinking for a long time. Like All's Well Ends Well, and these novels never start well. Of course, they never end well. It is just Shakespearean. As I said, All's Well by Mona Allwood is out today on August 3rd. And I don't want to give a lot of spoilers because I feel like I already did. We have this magic element, we have this woman in pain, everything seems to be miraculously cured, but nothing is ever as simple in life or in Shakespeare or in theater. So run and get your book from your favorite bookseller, and if you want a more traditional review, I have one in Goodreads just for you without any spoilers. And in a couple of weeks, I will be uploading a full digestion on this book. So you have a couple of weeks to read it and be ready for my spoilers. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars because, I don't know. I am not a fan of mysterious endings, even though I always end up reading novels like that. So, yes. And that is all for me. Those are the books I read during the month of July. I hope you like it. We have 6 novels for you to pick from. And if you could tell, they are kind of dark. This month was really heavy in the disturbing reads, challenging reads, violence, crime. Expect something different from next month because I definitely want to take a break of books like this. However, if you have a recommendation of books that are like this or any book, please send them to me. And yes, at the time that you are watching this video, there is a full wrap-up also in my Instagram if you want to see it. It's a different format. It's kind of the same things I just said now, but different format for the Instagram. And with that, I want to tell you, keep reading. And when you're not, follow me in all my social media linked down below so you can see that type of content in different platforms. I'm also going to do a wrap-up on TikTok. Let's see how that goes. And with the novelty that we have a Storygraph now because all the hot people are moving to Storygraph. Do not worry though, we're still gonna keep Goodreads because I'm a person of habits. So if you want to follow me in a Storygraph and be my friend, I have the link down below. So I'll see you next week with another video. Deal? Bye!